And just seeing the faces of those of you who were here, I think our 60 group is right down here. Yes, right down here. The very first year, and it's 59 years ago. It's really hard to believe, 1964. And here I was, a 17-year-old kid from a Manitoba prairie town of Altona. We've got a few Altonans here, Friesen and son Simon. And we have a few who are kind of adjacent people of Altona here as well. And we'll kind of shout out to them as the evening goes along. So I was here because my dad, Ted Friesen, was a good friend of the first president, J. Winfield Fretz. And my dad was sure that Winfield would keep me out of mischief and trouble. That was, shall we say, an unrealistic and idealistic hope. But you know, my dad's instincts were really right about this place, even though it was just beginning. And because like all of you, Grebel was such a formative place for us. Such a formative place. It made us. It made the best of us. And I, like I'm sure many of you, have formed a whole group of lifelong friends that survived the tumult of the Grebel years and now get together regularly still. And like some of you, maybe many of you, I found the love of my life here, Susan, and we're still together, so. Yes, shout out to Susan. So Grebel tonight is paying homage to that special Grebel institution, the Community Supper, which happened every Wednesday night, right from year one, right till now. It was the inspiration and design of J. Winfield Fretz, who in addition to being an academic leader and a noted sociologist, was also a sometime restaurateur in North Newton, Kansas. And so he knew what a supper should be, what a community supper should be. Very firm ideas, small round tables, tables for 6, and in those days, we dressed for dinner, formally for men, jackets and ties, and for women, skirts, as I recall. Now, my roommate at the time was Gordon Campbell, who many of you will remember, especially our 60s group, because Gordon is memorable right to this very day. He would become a 17th century specialist in Milton and the King James Bible. He is emeritus professor and the fellow of Renaissance Studies at Leicester University in England, and writer of a slew of books published by Oxford University Press on every subject from the Bible to English gardens to the Norse influence in North America. Gordon, or Campbell as we called him, and we still call him Campbell, was a mischief maker and a rebel. So the rule about community suppers in our day, as I said, was to go down in formal dress. But as Campbell observed one night as he and I were getting ready for dinner, was that the rule specifically said jacket and tie. Nothing about a shirt. Nothing about a shirt. So Campbell appeared at that night's community supper in a jacket and bare-chested with just a tie. Now, my 60s group will remember Mrs. Ellis. Mrs. Ellis, our dear matron. I actually think we called her matron. We didn't have a director of student services in those days. We had a matron. Mrs. Ellis was a lovely, elderly, very proper English lady. No match for the like of spirited undergraduates. And she was scandalized by the sight of a rather slim tie on a hairy chest and ordered Campbell back to our room to add a shirt. But he had made his point, whatever that point was. It was the 60s, right? Now, Mrs. Ellis used to visit different tables at community suppers, sharing herself with all of us over the course of a year. And one day she joined us at our table, and again, my friend Campbell was at the table, along with another regular at our table, David Frankel from Toronto. And the two of them, Campbell and Frankel, got into this rather spirited discussion. It was a theological disputation about the difference between Christians and Jews, Frankel being thoroughly Jewish. And as this became more heated, Mrs. Ellis got more uncomfortable. She tried to moderate the discussion and bring it to a harmonious conclusion, by looking squarely at David Frankel and saying, well, surely we are all basically Christians at heart. To sputtering protests from David Frankel. Oh, those were memorable community suppers, yes they were. And you know, as good and plentiful as the food was in those days, we young boys were always hungry. I wish I had time to really tell you all the stories about our attempts to get into the kitchen after hours. Now, Ron Thiessen, who lives on Pelee Island, still remembers helping the slimmest of our comrades down the laundry chute from the 3rd floor to gain entry into the kitchen. And hiding in the kitchen washroom until after the staff locked up, and then emerging to raid the kitchen afterwards. That's a memory of Eddie Corney's from Kingsville. Now, the kitchen staff got pretty wise to that pretty quickly and started checking the washroom before locking up for the night. I could give you chapter and verse, but to paraphrase a famous tourist saying about Las Vegas, some of what happened at Grebel in 1964 should probably stay at Grebel in 1964. All right, now in addition to this splendid group of alumni, and you really are splendid, we have some special guests here tonight I'd like to recognize. First of all, I'd like to ask all former board members of Grebel, would all of you who have served on the board please stand? And that includes me, too. So, congratulations. Now we would like to salute, we have with us some former presidents and their wives who are here tonight and who have all led this place honorably, and I include presidents and their wives, of course. I will ask them to stand. Please hold your applause until they all stand, and then we'll recognize them. So first of all, Jim and Goldine Pankratz, Henry and Leonora Petkow. There we are. Lorna Sawatsky, wife of the late Rodney Sawatsky. Is Lorna here? I hadn't seen her yet. Oh, there she is. Hey, Lorna. And Eileen Leibold, wife of the late Ralph Leibold. Where is Eileen? There she is. Hi, Eileen. So, big hand for all our former presidents and their wives. We also have representatives here from other colleges at the university, United, Renison, and St. Jerome's. We welcome you as well. And a very special welcome to our very special guest and our guest speaker tonight, University of Waterloo President Vivek Goel, who will be He will be talking to us about his vision for the future of the university and its relationship to the colleges, so we look forward to that. And now it's important to acknowledge that at Conrad Grebel University College, we are situated on the traditional territory of the Attawandaron, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. The college and the University of Waterloo were built on the Haldimand Tract, the land granted in 1784 to the Six Nations that includes 10 kilometers on each side of the Grand River, from its source in Dundalk to its mouth at Lake Erie. And our work at reconciliation with Indigenous peoples includes decolonizing our historical narratives, our minds, and our hearts. This is an ongoing process, and we have a long way to go. We do this in humility and gratitude to our Indigenous neighbors, past and present. Now, as you've probably seen, we have a number of event sponsors tonight, event sponsors and dinner sponsors, and I'll mention them all, and then we'll ask for a special acknowledgement and recognition of them. The event sponsor for tonight is Miller Thompson, LLP. Our dinner sponsors are Lease Pet Distributing, St. Jacobs Furnishings, Wayforth Legal Counsel, and EB Financial. Please give them a big hand and thank you. And if you all are responsible for that cashless bar, which is a real change from 59 years ago, let me tell you. Thank you so much. And Fred Martin tells me that 4 of the 5 representing these generous firms are all arts graduates. It warms my heart. Right. Yes, let's hear it for arts graduates. Now I want to call upon Jessica Risa-Rempel, who is the chaplain of the college and also Grebel's new Director of Student Services, to say grace.
Okay, all right. Please.
Thank you so much. And I was getting some good ideas from your stories, so I appreciate that as well. So if you were here at a community supper early in the term, I would remind us that one of the beautiful things about Grebel is our diversity, and that today we have people gathered from many different faith backgrounds and no faith background. So whoever you are and whatever you believe, you are welcome here. And in keeping with our Anabaptist Christian faith tradition, I want to offer a prayer of gratitude for the food we're about to eat. Let's pray. Loving God, we thank you for this good food before us. We thank you for each person who had a hand in preparing this food, from the cooks who peeled and chopped today to the farmers who planted and harvested the ingredients. May the food and the conversation around these tables be a blessing to each of us, and may we be mindful of those in our world who are hungry for food and for fellowship. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Jessica. You probably saw my colleague, my 60s colleague, Chris Thompson, come up to me and whisper in my ear. This happens regularly. It's happened regularly in the 60s, and it still does. Chris would like to know who here met their spouse at Conrad Grebel. Please raise your hand, or stand, I guess. How many of you met your... Yeah, please stand. Let's stand and celebrate. Come on, Susie. Come on, Susie, stand. Yeah. Just one of the many added benefits of having been at Grebel. So now please enjoy your salad and your community supper bread. Glass, but I don't have one. Anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt all this wonderful visiting that's going on, but we must move on. I'll mention we will have dessert in a little bit, but right now I'd like to call on Grebel President, our 8th President, Marcus Shantz, to introduce our guest speaker. Marcus.
Well, I'm delighted to introduce Vivek Goel. Since 2021, Dr. Goel served as the President and Vice Chancellor of the University of Waterloo, and before coming here, he held a number of senior leadership roles at the University of Toronto. He's also a member of the Order of Canada. Vivek is an expert in public health, and the university was fortunate that he arrived here in the middle of a global pandemic. He was also the founding president and CEO of Public Health Ontario from 2008 until 2014, and was a founding scientist at the Institute for Clinical Evaluative Sciences. He obtained his medical degree from McGill University and has graduate degrees from the University of Toronto and from Harvard University. In the year 2057, 34 years from now, the University of Waterloo will be 100 years old. And when Dr. Goel arrived here, he invited the university community to express our best hopes and aspirations for the university in 2057, and to map out how we might realize those dreams. And the result of that initiative is Waterloo at 100, a refreshing departure from the typical 5-year strategic plan. I invited Vivek to speak to us about Waterloo at 100 and how Grebel and our neighbors at St. Jerome's, United, and Renison might be part of that vision. Before I invite him to the podium, I would just like to offer a little context. Most of you are here because you're Grebel supporters, you're proud of this place, and you believe that Grebel is one of the gems of the University of Waterloo. And it's true, this place is a gem. But I want to point out tonight that we are a very, very tiny gem in the context of the university. 170 undergraduate students live here at Grebel, and there are over 34,000 undergrads at the University of Waterloo. So if you do the math, that means that 1/2 of 1% of Waterloo students live here. We teach less than 4% of all courses offered by the Faculty of Arts at the University of Waterloo. Our annual operating budget is a little over 1% of the university's. I mention this for two reasons. The first, of course, is to avoid too much pride and to be humble in keeping with Mennonite tradition. But the second is to point out that given how very small Grebel actually is, it's very generous for the president of the university to take the time to join us this evening at our small but beautiful corner of the campus of this great institution. Please give a warm welcome to Vivek Goel.
Well, thank you, Marcus, for the kind introduction. It's great to be here. I know you're all great supporters of Conrad Grebel, and I think one thing that's important and why I'm here is if you're a supporter of Conrad Grebel, you're also a supporter of the University of Waterloo, because we are one big, happy family. I'm between you and dessert, so we'll try to move things along. I'm going to say a few words about Waterloo at 100, and Marcus has done a great setup for this. When I arrived at Waterloo and I started having conversations, one of the things I saw was there was this tradition of doing 5-year strategic plans, big exercise, nice glossy document, it goes sits on the shelf, and then a few years later, what have we done? And you start the process over again. So there wasn't a link between the plans and what was actually being done. But more significantly, my sense was, and I heard it repeatedly from many colleagues, that we didn't really have a sense of where we were going anymore as an institution. Anyone know the history of 5-year plans? Where the number 5 comes from? Soviet Union, yes. Soviet Union developed the concept of the 5-year industrial plans. So that's the length of time it took to put up a factory. So you have plans for what factories you can build in the next 5 years. Universities don't build things or change things. You don't create programs on 5-year cycles. It takes time, takes into consideration. If you're going to think about changing directions, you're going to think about what faculty you're going to recruit, and the faculty you recruit are going to be here for a long time. So you got to take a much longer time horizon. And so Waterloo, people who've looked at this will say 20, 25 years as the time horizon is reasonable. We chose the 100 because it had a nice tagline. It's a little bit longer. When we started, it was 35 years. But I think it does give you the ability to really imagine and think differently. But we started the exercise by going back and looking at our past. And here I have to be really thankful to Ken McLaughlin, who's the semi-official or official university historian, who's a faculty member at St. Jerome's, who's written a series of books on the history of the University of Waterloo, as well as one on the history of St. Jerome's University. I'm sure many of you, especially the 60s section over there, will recognize some of the faces on the screen, the founders of the University of Waterloo. And I'll just say that University of Waterloo was founded by local community, but local community to meet the needs that they saw with the changes coming in the world and in their community at that time. In the mid-1950s, and at the height of the Cold War, Sputnik had just been launched, computers were being discovered. They saw a world changing very rapidly, and they saw their local economy, the industries were going to have to transform. And so they came up with this idea that we needed, in particular, a different kind of engineer than what traditional universities were producing. And so they came up with this concept of a university that would be quite unconventional. And it really resulted in a series of key differentiators for the institution. Probably most significant, and we've been talking about it at our table, I'm sure many people really were shaped by cooperative education at the University of Waterloo. The engineering faculty in its early days was designed completely around a co-op model. And it continues in essentially the same format, 5 to 6 4-month work terms over a 5-year curriculum. Just graduates have 2 years of work experience, and work experience that's really connected. It's not just like some internships might be, where you find things for the student to do. These are jobs that are posted that are needed in the organization. And that continues to this day. 90% of our programs across all 6 faculties have co-op options. We place about 27,000 co-op work terms a year at the University of Waterloo. Put that in perspective, more than the next 4 institutions doing co-op in the country put together. In the United States, the largest provider, Northeastern, does about 12,000 a year. And simply put, we're the largest provider of co-op education in a research-intensive institution in the world. And so that has become our defining characteristic. But it's, co-op is obviously very valuable to the students, it's valuable to the employers, but it's also valuable to the institution. Because through those connections that we have with workplaces, students are always coming back with fresh ideas, with fresh experiences. They inform their instructors, their professors, it informs their teaching, and informs their research. So our research has become much more connected at the University of Waterloo than at other institutions because of this back and forth. And between these, we've developed this culture of innovation and entrepreneurship. And again, now we're very well known, and we talk a lot about technology innovation, technology entrepreneurship, but we have great programs across the spectrum of areas, including the Peace Incubator here at Conrad Grebel, a greenhouse at United College that works on social impact, and many other programs. And so this culture of innovation can be related to the co-op model, because students are going into these different workplaces, getting ideas for where innovation is necessary, this impactful research. We have professors who are connected with what's happening. And we have a number of the factors like the intellectual property policy at the university that was put in place in the early days with inventor ownership that have resulted in that culture. The final piece is the connection to community. And Conrad Grebel is very well connected to community, but the University of Waterloo is, I would say, much better connected to its community than other universities I've been part of, conversations I have with other university leaders. And I think it goes back again to those roots, founded by the local community for its needs, and it continues to remain connected. And that community has grown and evolved in those 66 years now, since the founding of the university. And it has grown and evolved to be a major tech center. We have major research institutes like the Perimeter Institute and CG, the Center for International Governance Innovation. We have the Research Institute on Aging, supported by the Schlegels over here. So right here on this campus or around this campus, we have these world-class institutions that have grown up alongside of the university. Again, when I look at peer institutions in similar sized communities in other parts of the United States and Canada, they're not situated in a community with the kinds of assets that we have. So these are some of the key founding differentiators that we need to keep in mind as we look forward. We also have this very unique structure with what we refer to as our AFUs, our affiliated and federated institutions at Waterloo. And again, if we look at the universities founded in that era, in the late 50s, early 60s, very few of them adopted this model of having what we refer to as constituent colleges. Affiliated institutions that are autonomous in their own right, but operate within the environment of the larger university. More traditional universities like the one I came from, University of Toronto, actually had a set of colleges that existed before the university came into being. Victoria College, St. Michael's, and they federated with the non-denominational University College to become the University of Toronto. Here, it's almost the other way around. St. Jerome's was pre-existing, and that's why it's a federated institution, and it federated to create the University of Waterloo. But then the founders of the university, just as they were unique in thinking about so many other things, said we will also set aside land and invite community partners to develop colleges on our campus that will be independent and that will help us in the community connection. And so that's what led to the creation of Renison United, what's now called United College, and Conrad Grebel, and we're here to celebrate your 60th anniversary. And we can come back at the end to talk about some of the unique values and characteristics that this has brought. So, just looking ahead, I'll skip through all the process and the thousands of people that we consulted with and so on, because that was the sausage making, but happy to talk about that. But we come up with the who we are and what we envision. And these were as much statements to help express within our community what it is that we're doing and why we're different. And to answer that question, have we lost our way? And really the answer that was, we always knew what our way was. Right? It was the way that the founders had set. But over the years, we'd maybe forgotten about it. And so the who we are statement simply restates what I just said in terms of what distinguishes us. We are a global research-intensive university renowned for entrepreneurship and innovation, providing co-op and work-integrated learning at scale with impact. And so that's really what we started with, and we've reaffirmed that's where we're headed. But it does become a very important statement to articulate, because one of the questions that I'm frequently asked is, are we going to try to position ourselves to move up in those global rankings of universities? And my answer is, if this is our vision, then we shouldn't be trying to move up only in those rankings, because that will make us look more and more like everyone else out there. If we want to remain unconventional and known for what made us different, we shouldn't just chase after. It doesn't mean the rankings aren't important. There are certainly characteristics in there that we pay attention to and measure, and we have continued to move up in the rankings, but we're not going to chase those. And so that's why the statement may seem obvious, but it becomes significant, because it really ensures that everyone in our community understands those roots and what we continue to do. I won't read the vision part, but I think it lays out the boldness of what we hope to achieve. Our three principles, again, rediscover unconventional, really speaks to what I've just been talking about. Leading globally, acting locally, again, we felt very important to articulate. Go back to the founding, very much based in our local roots. But in the last few years, and I think quite rightly, as the university developed global aspirations and to be well known on the global stage, there was the sense that perhaps the university was spending more time looking outwards at the global stage than locally. And so this statement, this principle is really about ensuring we continue to balance the global and the local. The final point, coordination, collaboration, and again, it speaks to the kind of partnership we have with Conrad Grebel, that we partner with other institutions, we partner with community organizations, we partner with employers, but it's also about the culture we seek to create within the institution, collaborating across faculties, across departments, across programs and institutes. Again, as the institution grew very rapidly, and it's almost been in constant growth for the last 60 years, it became harder and harder to get things done across the institution. So putting that up front was essential. We centered our aspirations around what we framed as the global futures, And we have 5 areas, and I'll just describe each of them very quickly. Societal futures, health futures, sustainable futures, technological futures, and economic futures. But we start by what is the future of humanity and where are we going as a human race. And again, in longer versions of this talk, I will put in all the big challenges we face as society, as a planet. But this is a celebration, so I don't want to depress people. But I'm sure everyone, you see the news, you read the newspapers, you know what those big challenges are. And within that, we continue to have these existential threats for humanity, and the latest is being what AI may do to us, if the climate crisis doesn't get us first, or if the next pandemic comes at us. And so, what is the future that we envision? In terms of societal futures, we know that societies are changing very rapidly. We're just talking about how downtown Kitchener has been changing in the last few years. But every community, every part of the world is changing, and how people relate to each other. And we do have an opportunity through our research and scholarship to be contributing to this and to be thinking about, as we get to the other futures, how do we shape what we want to come in terms of new technologies, in terms of new solutions to the big challenges we have, as opposed to letting those technologies shape us. One of the examples I like to use is smartphones. And we can say smartphones were invented in this town by someone from the University of Waterloo, Mike Lazaridis, who had the great idea of putting an antenna inside of a computer, a pocket computer, and you could communicate, and he wanted to get email anytime, and that led to the BlackBerry. And if you follow the chain, smartphones that we all carry around now can be traced back to that technology. And social media, which now shapes society, has resulted in polarization, all sorts of things, is there because the smartphones enabled it. Can't blame Mike Lazaridis for polarization. But we had people thinking about what would a completely connected world be like. One of them was an English professor, Marshall McLuhan, at the University of Toronto in the 1960s. And so I make this point that we have people in the arts, humanities, social sciences that are thinking about how the world is changing. And we have to think about how we bring that kind of thinking to the people that are developing the technologies so they can shape those technologies. Health futures. Again, I don't really have to explain why this is important, but one of the things, again, that's been very interesting for me to learn about is the great strengths that Waterloo has in the health area. I got asked a lot, you're a physician, what are you doing going to lead the University of Waterloo? And my answer would always be, David Johnson was a lawyer and there was no law school. But what I saw as I was being recruited, at the time the strategic plan had laid out a set of priorities around the intersections of health, technology, and society. So applications in community health, in healthy aging in the community. And you can see that Waterloo was positioned to do health in a different way. You could look at how do we keep people healthy, and traditional medical models, we really worry about how do you fix people after they get sick or injured. We have the opportunities to take the technologies that we're developing in areas like quantum and nano robotics and apply them in healthcare for good. So we have an opportunity here, again, and you'll start to see between each of these future areas, there's lots of intersections to bring together new solutions to the challenges that we face in health in a way that might not happen at other institutions. Similarly, in sustainable futures, and certainly climate crisis is very significant, but we have biodiversity, clean water, so many challenges in sustainability. How do we ensure that everyone on this planet has an opportunity to have a prosperous future? So this is, again, a great area where Waterloo has an opportunity to lead. Many institutions around the world are now creating schools of environment or faculties of environment. Stanford got a $1.8 billion donation, 0.8 billion, just one donation, John Doerr, for a new school of environment. Waterloo has had a standalone faculty of environment for over 50 years. Long before anyone else in the world was worrying about this, we were already building our strengths in this area. Technological futures, we push this towards the end, because this is what we usually start with. Our strengths are in robotics and advanced manufacturing and so on. And this is what when I came to Waterloo, that was my understanding. It's an engineering school, it's a computer science school. But really, so societal futures, the health futures, the sustainable futures, where we will have our impact. And it's in shaping the technologies to get us where we need to go. So it's really developing technologies for a particular problem as opposed to technology for the sake of that technology. So it's not just about putting the antenna inside of the smartphone. What is it that you want people to do with that device? Have those discussions as you're developing it, and maybe we'll be able to shape those technologies in a better way. And again, the Tech for Good program here is a great example of the sort of thing we want to take from that 1% up to way more of our students. And the final future is economic futures. And we put this at the end because if we don't address the challenges that we face here, we won't have the resources to do what is necessary, right? We won't be able to address healthcare sustainability or the climate crisis or anything else if we don't generate the wealth necessary, if we don't generate in a way that's equitable and inclusive. And simply put, Canada has a huge problem with productivity. We are lagging, in Ontario in particular, is lagging the rest of the world in productivity growth. Canada has gone from being one of the top performers in the OECD to the bottom. Ontario as a jurisdiction in the United States and Canada has gone from being a top performer to near the bottom. And again, there's a whole number of reasons around this, but we need innovative solutions if we're going to get where we need to be. And again, I see Waterloo as having some very unique opportunities. Mark Lieber is over here. One of our advantages, we don't have a business school. And we can think about business education. We can think about entrepreneurship in ways that traditional business schools don't think. Because our business education, doesn't mean we don't have business education, as Mark will tell you. We have lots of business education. About 30% of our students are enrolled in programs that have some component of business education. But it's embedded within disciplines. It's embedded inside of science and business and arts and business and engineering and business. So we're doing it in a very different way, and I think that gives us an opportunity again to address these economic challenges that we face in a different way. So the next few slides, I'm just going to flash through in the interest of time, but we have a number of steps to take on this journey to 2057. We do have work to do on our culture as an organization, on what we're doing to support our students as they become alumni, how we value and count our research, and work on our own campus itself. And our campus should be a model. If we think about what we expect for society, we're just talking again at our table about polarization. If we can't have conversations amongst ourselves here on our campus, amongst people with sharply divergent views, how do we expect change to happen in society? If we can't have our campus be sustainable, achieve its carbon neutrality targets, how can we expect others to adopt solutions from us? So working on those changes within our own campus. We also have identified a number of areas in those 4 differentiators that I started with that we need to continue to evolve. So while we're this very large provider of co-op education, we know the world of work is changing. And what does a co-op placement look like in a gig economy? How do we handle graduate education as we've increased it and have more opportunities for graduate students to have co-op placements? Our research, we want to very much focus on how do we ensure that our research is connected and around those interdisciplinary areas that I've identified. In particular, we want to focus on social and policy engagement. And so we're very well known, again, for our technology innovation. We want to continue to be well known, as we'll show in the next slide, in those areas. But we also have amazing work being done that has impact on public policy, on programs in schools, and other public sector organizations. Let's also be as well known for innovation and change in those spaces. In the area of innovation entrepreneurship, again, continuing to be the global leader that we are, but also looking at that tech for good. How do we ensure that what we're doing is having an impact? How do we work with our community partners around us, like Communitech, the Accelerator Center, and not just generating new ideas and new companies? We're #1 in the country for venture-backed firms being founded by alumni of the University of Waterloo. But sadly, a large proportion of those companies don't stay and grow in this region. And sadly, many of them are moving south of the border because that's where the funding is, that's where the markets are. So if we're going to create the conditions so that we will continue to develop as a regional powerhouse, we need to create an environment where those companies will grow and scale here. And then continuing to build our connections with our local community. This community, again, has changed tremendously in the 66 years that the university's been here, but it's going to change even more significantly in the next few decades. 630,000 in the last census estimates, could be 1 million by 2050. So how is this community going to grow? How are we going to have housing, transportation, schools, social services? We can't continue to develop them and build them in the same way we've always done. We won't have the resources. We need innovation. We need new models. So great opportunities for partnership between the university, faculty, students, working with community partners around solving those challenges ahead, and then coming up with solutions that can be taken around the world. And so I'll just close with, again, I don't think I have to give you suggestions for how Grebel can contribute here, because I think hopefully you can see through so many of the themes the way in which each of the colleges can be involved. But I will close by just saying that, in my time at the University of Toronto, I got to really understand in a very deep way, both as an academic administrator, as well as a parent who had both of my kids go through Victoria College, where they got that sense of being part of a community while they were in a much larger university. I truly understand the important role that colleges such as Conrad Grebel play in the life of a large research-intensive university. So I look forward to continuing to work with Conrad Grebel until, not be here in 2057, but some of the students will be here, and hopefully these relationships will continue for many years to come. Thank you very much.
If there's time, he would take some questions. Is that okay?
Yep,
Yeah.
you're the boss.
Any questions?
You don't have to.
Oh, we've got Ted Roberts from the 60s group.
Okay.
Great presentation, sir, and I understand where the university is coming from, the 60s with engineering and maths and science, and the focus, as I understand it, is the contribution of technology into society and how that can play. I would further submit that this is a Christian college. The question is, how can we leverage the Christian ethos in terms of care and compassion and changing the environment, when at the same time technology is really threatening the mission of the church? And is the university able to integrate that into your society concept?
So, that might be a question better for Marcus here. I would certainly say absolutely that, that is something that we should be looking at. I wouldn't just look at it from the perspective of the Christian faith, but of all faiths, because I think every faith is facing the same challenges. And as was said in the invocation, even if you don't have faith, I think you're still seeing the challenges that some of these technologies are bringing to us. And so absolutely, that's one of the things that I would like to see much more of, is these collaborations that bring people from the technology areas together with people in arts and social sciences, humanities, across a range of disciplines to tackle those sorts of challenges. A good example is a recently launched network that we have called the Trust Network. It was actually conceived by Donna Strickland, our Nobel laureate from 2017, where as she got into more of the public eye, which happens to Nobel laureates, she was seeing that there was this distrust of science. And particularly during COVID, we saw that come up. And so she wanted to work on how to restore that trust. And, like many scientists would say, well, let's just go out have some lectures with the community. And a number of us said, we think you need more than just having lectures. We need scholars who actually study how people are consuming information, what is leading to the polarization and distrust. And so that network has people from right across the university. It's co-led by a faculty member in communications arts who studies polarization in social media, and they just had their launch event a couple of weeks ago. There'll be a series of projects coming out of that. But it's an example of the sort of thing we're trying to do, where we go horizontally across the university, because I think historically we've done things very much in the silos within the faculties. The people in engineering work with people in engineering, people in math, people in math.
Any other questions? Kerwin? Why don't you get up so we can all hear the question?
Certainly. So one of the early founding principles of Waterloo was this ability to own, professors could own intellectual property. Is that still unique within Canada? Is that unique within North America? And is that still a major calling card for the university to attract entrepreneurial scientists and professors of all different?
Yeah. So it is, because in the United States, they have this legislation called the Bayh-Dole Act. If your institution's funded by federal government research, the institution has to take ownership of the intellectual property, and there's a whole set of reasons behind that. So in the United States, no institutions have this kind of model. In Canada, there may be, it's certainly the minority, but we're not the sole institution. University of Toronto has shared ownership, and there's a few others that have inventor-owned. It certainly is a calling card for the university, and I think for the region, because it's created this culture. So I hear that the hospitals recruit clinicians that want to come here because they want to help develop new technologies in their clinical discipline. They're not affiliated with the University of Waterloo, but they're coming here because they know they can work with faculty members that are in research areas where they'll have ownership of the IP and it will make them easier for them to commercialize it. So it has become a calling card for the region, and it applies to students, graduate students, as well as the faculty.
Can you take one more?
One more, sure.
One more question? One more question? Going once? Going twice? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Vivek. For those of us who are the 1%, we are honored that you could be here tonight to speak to us. And while we of the 60s group won't be here in 2057, I don't think, but we know that there will be others here who will, I'm sure we're all confident that with your leadership, things will really develop. And I would just add, University of Waterloo is very lucky to have you as president. So great to have you here. So it's time for dessert, folks. You got to get up again, get it yourself, as we always did with our community suppers, but coffee will be served at the table. Okay. Announcements in a moment, but not for me. But there seems to be a movement of the 60s group to take a photograph, sort of a class photograph, after we're done near the fireplace. So all of you want to be, because who knows when we'll see each other again. All right, community suppers have always included many announcements from students about upcoming activities, and tonight is no different. And I'd like to call up Kayla Burmaster, who is the student council president here now, and there'll be some other students as well to make some announcements. So Kayla, where are you? Where is Kayla?
Right here.
Here you are. Okay. Way you go. Right.
Thank you. Normally when I come up here at these events that have meals like community supper and they say, hey, you should talk, I'm like, okay, cool. But I always have to thank the kitchen for the food that I did not make myself. Okay, I was told I should tell you a bit about myself. So I'm a student at Waterloo, shocker. Also the student council president, as mentioned. I'm studying music, psychology, and theater and performance. Yes, I will be here forever. At this time, Simon Friesen's going to come up, and Andy Bang is going to come up, and Alex Pawelko is going to come, and they will also tell you a bit about themselves and share a little announcement. So, I have an announcement for you. Just gonna make sure I say this right. So, in an effort to keep the residents comfortable during the summer, we encourage you to extend our open door tradition to the wee hours of the morning and open your windows to let in the cool breeze of night. Thank you. Simon.
Hello everyone, my name is Simon Friesen. I'm a Kidden student at Waterloo here, and I've been at Dawn, I've been involved as the athletic rep, I've been involved in a number of ways at Grebel. And today I have a little announcement. I just wanted to clear up a little bit of confusion. Grebel, no, we are not installing an interactive water display. So you might be wondering, what am I talking about? Well, if you look out that way, you might remember out towards the games lounge, there's a couple of bathrooms over there on the left side of the hallway. And in the past, we have had a fun little event that we've dubbed the Feces Falls, where we had a whole bunch of water flowing out of those bathrooms down about 20 feet of stairs and into the lower academic wing. And so no, that was not intentional piping that we installed new, that is old piping that we've neglected. And so the water that was flowing out there was not new and crystal clear. It was, well, let's say used water and a little murky. So I was actually the on dawn when this happened. So I came down there as you normally do as a dawn. I brought my rubber boots. I waded in about 3 inches of this murky water to try to figure out what's going on. Took a look at the toilets. Good news, toilets weren't overflowing. Bad news, that means that the water system had been overused a little bit that day, and then the sewage had come up from the bottom of the system up through the drain itself, and was flowing over from stair to stair to stair to stair. And so we called Paul Penner, we called the janitors, we called everybody we could call. The leading theory is that too many people had taken a shower in the short end that day, and they kind of pushed the system back out again. And so just wanted to clarify, that was not in fact intentional. It was going to be a one-time thing. Luckily, the short end washrooms are typically out of order every other week. And so they likely won't have too much more overuse in the next coming couple weeks.
Thank you, Simon. Where's Alex Pawelko?
Howdy gamers, my name is Alex Pawelko. I'm a current third year pure mathematics student and future Don. And today I came to announce, as well as steal the joke of my good friend Michael Wu. I'm gonna ask for a show of hands here. Does anyone here like spiders? Does anyone here like men? Well, good news, because we're gonna go see a showing of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse in the theater at Conestoga, because that theater has working bathrooms. Unlike Fourth Short, which has not had working bathrooms all semester. Thank you all.
Alex is actually not kidding. The amount of messages I've seen in our Discord thing, it's a messaging platform that we use for community. There's been a lot of, at resident, the bathrooms in Fourth Short are not working. Please use different ones. Anyway, Andy Bang, come on up.
Okay, so my name is Andy. I'm a little sick, but I'm gonna keep it a little short. I am a psychology student in my 2A term, and in the spirit of October, I have a little horror story to share with you all. So one night, last year, in the fall of 2022, I walked down the dark hallways lined with garbage bags, black trash bags leading to recycle bins below, because there was a little down in the roofs. And when I got to my room and I was about to go to bed, I realized, my purple suitcase under my bed was getting a little soggy. So I went to bed as if nothing happened. And when I got up, the horror in my eyes as I realized half of my floor has gotten wet. And the worst part is, it had to be on my side of the room. So then I took swift action and put a skateboard on top of my computer so that it did not get wet while I went to class. And as I stepped down, I heard a little splat, splat, splat as I walked across and got changed as I went to class. Ooh, spooky. But, yeah. Grebel plumbing, a little scary last year.
Thank you, Andy. Andy didn't mention that he's also a Don right now, so congratulations, Andy. That's all from the students, as far as I know, unless there was something I wasn't told about. Okay, I was told everything. We're good.
Just go ahead.
Okay, I have an announcement too, in response to the student announcements. But before I get into that, let me just add, do I have the thing here? Let me add my thanks. There we go. Where are we going?
That was the wrong button.
What's the right button?
The one, no. The arrow, that one.
That one. Let me add my thanks to all of our sponsors for tonight's meal. Thanks again. And thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. I had a number of questions before this event from many of you Some of you were saying, a Grebel Gala, what even is that? Like, what does that mean? And a number of you asked about what should I wear. I had at least 10 conversations about what you should wear, and I just want all of you to know that you look great. We had a great start to our academic year back in September. It really does feel like the pandemic is over. And this is a picture of student leaders welcoming first-year students to the resident, and that's something that's happened every Labor Day weekend since 1964. And I look at this picture in wonder. Some of these students are majoring in subjects that I don't understand at all, even after they explain it to me a second time. Nanotechnology, quantum computing, geomatics. And whatever they study, I believe that living here at Grebel enables them to connect their powerful formal education here at Waterloo to values and purpose, to questions and commitments about what's most important in life. And I believe firmly that they will help lead all of us towards a better future, including a future with better plumbing. How do I turn that on? How do I shift the, oh, there we go. This is a picture of Winfield Fretz, Milt Good, and John Neufeld laying the cornerstone of the chapel back in 1963. And I think they would be very happy to see our student body today and see our student leaders today. I think it's exactly what they had in mind when they founded the college. So we don't have a 40-year plan for Grebel at 100. We have a 3-year plan that was to help us recover from the pandemic. So let's talk about Grebel in 2025. We worked hard coming out of the pandemic to really focus on the core things that we need to do to come out of the pandemic strong and healthy. And so we decided 4 focus areas: student experience, partnerships, renewal of our academic programs, and resilience and sustainability. And 2 of those subjects, student experience and resilience and sustainability, are 2 things I'd like to chat about with my announcement. So this residence is 60 years old. It has 60-year-old windows, 60-year-old plumbing in the washrooms. There's no air conditioning or air circulation apart from the windows that leak. So the curtains freeze to the window frames in the winter, and in the summer, of course, it's a greenhouse. We're really painting an awful picture. May I remind you that the students who spoke were all here last year. What they were talking about was a lot of last year. They're still here, so we must be doing something right. We did, in fact, fix the roof last year. We have, our buildings are aging, and we have actually kept up with building maintenance, and we've made lots of improvements over the years. And in fact, this dining hall, which we just completed a few years ago, is one of the examples. And we took the opportunity when we did that to replace a lot of aging pipes and roofs and so forth. But we aren't finished. We have third-party building condition reports, and they've told us that there's a lot to do around the property, but in particular in the residence, that we need to replace the residence windows and the plumbing. And additionally, as I've said, there's no air conditioning or even air circulation in the residence. So this affects livability and comfort, particularly for summer students, and we'd like to see more summer students. Another reason for investing in the residence is to do our part for environmental sustainability. So the college has matched the university's goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions by 35% in 7 years. We've completed a third-party environmental audit, and it's determined that a big part of the pathway to that reduction is new windows, and also a shift to newer heating and cooling systems, perhaps heat pumps and that kind of thing. So in addition to being about livability and environmental stewardship of the building, it's also about environmental sustainability. And I believe, and Vivek said the same thing, that our students actually need to see us taking action on these issues. So we've developed a plan to renew the residence, replace the windows, upgrade heating and cooling systems, replace the plumbing, and renovate the washrooms, moving from shared use more to single use. It's really hard to estimate renovation costs at any scale these days. It's a moving target, but we believe that $3.5 million will enable us to complete much of this work. And doing this work will improve livability, comfort, and environmental sustainability. It's good stewardship for our buildings, and as I've said, it will attract more students for the summer term. How will we pay for it? Well, Grebel has never received major capital funding from any level of government. Borrowing from a bank would involve raising residence fees to cover the cost, and that would unacceptably increase the cost for our students and their families. So we have to raise most of the money in donations, as we always have, and tonight I'm announcing a campaign to raise $3.5 million to renew Grebel's residence for future generations of students. Now, we don't have $1.8 billion, but we've already raised almost 1.8 in pledges. And I'm very happy about that, and I'm actually relieved, because it's a special kind of donor who will, when you say, I'd like to replace some pipes and some windows, they say, yes, we see the importance of that. So thank you to all of you who have already contributed and made pledges to this campaign. So that's just over 50% of our goal, and we've only been at it for a couple months. So I'm quite confident about the idea that we'll get to that. We have struck an alumni fundraising advisory committee, and those are the people who are on that committee. I'm grateful to this group of alumni who've agreed to be part of it. And I hope you as well will consider supporting our effort to renew our residence for future generations of students so that they can have the same kinds of experience that so many of you have. We've taken the liberty of placing pledge cards at the tables. I think they're there. And if you've been greatly moved by this presentation and you want to fill it out right now, you're welcome to do that and leave it at the registration table or with Fred. However, it's not a hostage situation. We're not going to lock the doors. You're allowed to leave without completing a card. But I do hope you will consider helping us out with this, because it's an important project and it's good for our students. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks for coming out this evening, and thanks for being part of this this community and our wider college family.
Thank you so much, Marcus. It falls to me now to wrap up the formal part of this evening. It's been wonderful to look back and also to look forward as we have. It's just really inspiring. And we're lucky also to have you as president. Very much so, Marcus. So in closing, I'd like to thank a lot of the individual people who have made this possible, beginning with Gabby Diemert in food services. And I have to say, the food has greatly improved since my day. Conrad Grebel, it really has. I remember, well, Karen Conrad was reminding us that the first 2 months, 1964, someone who shall remain unnamed was the cook. This is before Eric, the cook, took over. And I think we had cream corn on buns just about every day for about 2 months. Cream peas and cream corn.
And cream carrots.
And cream carrots. Yeah. Okay. So maybe you can see why we were raiding the kitchen. Anyway, the food has greatly improved. And Gabby, thank you so much for treating us all so well here tonight. Special thanks also to Liz Kinsett in the President's Office, to Allison Enns in Advancement, Jen Conkle in the Communications staff, and to Fred Martin, Director of Advancement, who lurks behind all of this and makes it happen. He marshals all the forces beautifully, and of course, we'll be hitting you up for to support the improvements to the residents. So, I also should mention that if you're interested in a tour of the residence to see the before, and then we'll have the after later, please meet Gemma Ricker and students by the fireplace as well, along with the 60s group who want to take a picture. Thanks very much, everyone, for coming out. Great to see you all, and until next time.